For 12 years, she had been perfecting one skill. Not cooking, not weaving, not raising children. She had been learning how to disappear. She knew how to keep her eyes low so no one would catch them. How to leave a room so quietly that no one was sure she had ever been in it. 12 years is long enough to become an expert at anything. She had become an expert at not being seen. It had not always been this way. Once she had a name, people said, out loud. Once she could stand in the middle of a room and no one stepped back. But something had been wrong with her body. For 12 years, a bleeding that would not stop. And in her town, that one fact rewrote everything else about her. Anyone who touched her would be kept from their own family until nightfall. So people learned to step back when she came near. And after enough years, the stepping back stops feeling like something people do to you and starts to feel like something you are. She learned the lesson. She learned to come near to no one. She had done everything a person is supposed to do. She had spent 12 years and every coin she had on doctors who left her no better, only worse, until there was nothing left to sell and nothing left to hope with. And then she heard that a teacher was passing through her town. People were saying the sick who reached him did not stay sick. She did the arithmetic of her whole life in a single thought. To reach him, she would have to do the one thing she was never allowed to do. She would have to walk into a crowd. She would have to let her body, the body the whole town stepped away from, press into a wall of other bodies. Every person she pushed past would carry her uncleanness home without ever knowing whose it was. By every rule she had lived under, it was forbidden. And she decided to do it anyway. But she made herself a quiet promise. She would not be seen. She would come from behind and touch only the edge, the very hem of his clothing, the lowest and least important part of him. She would take what she needed in secret, the way an invisible person takes anything, and slip back into the crowd before anyone turned around. So she went down into the crowd. Imagine it from inside her. The press of strangers, the dust, the noise, the heat of bodies, the backs of people who had no idea who was moving among them. For a woman who had spent 12 years keeping an arm's length from all of humanity, every single step was its own small terror. Someone shoved past and nearly knocked her down. A shoulder caught hers and the man did not even glance back. A year ago, that one contact would have sent her fleeing home in shame. Now she barely felt it. She had one target, and she kept moving toward it. She kept her head down. She did not look at faces. Faces meant being looked back at, and being looked back at was the one risk she could not take. She looked for one thing only, the hem of his robe swinging near the ground as he walked, the part she could reach without anyone ever lifting their eyes to her. She was close now, close enough to see the dust on the hem, the worn threads where it dragged along the ground. Her heart was pounding so hard she was sure the people pressed against her could hear it. She told herself she would do it quickly and be gone before anyone felt a thing. And when it was close enough, she reached, not for his hand, not for his shoulder, for the lowest, least important corner of him, the edge. The part you could touch and still tell yourself you had touched nothing at all. Her fingers closed on the fabric, and something happened in her body that 12 years and every doctor in the region could not do. She felt it stop. She knew in herself that the bleeding was over. 12 years, undone in the space of a single breath, through the corner of a stranger's coat. Now all that was left was the easy part, the part she was best at in all the world. Slip back, disappear. No one had seen, no one would ever know, or so she thought. And then the strangest thing in the whole story happened. The teacher stopped walking. In the middle of a crowd pressing on him from every side, he stopped. And he turned, and he asked a question that made no sense to anyone standing there. Who touched me? His own friends almost laughed at him. Look at this crowd, they said. People are crushing in on you from every direction. Dozens of hands are on you right now. And you ask, who touched me? It was a fair point. In a crowd like that, a single touch is nothing. The one contact that cannot be traced. The one designed to be lost, which is exactly why she had chosen it. But he did not mean that kind of touch. He kept looking. He was not scanning the crowd for a threat, and he was not hunting for someone who had broken a rule. He was searching it for a person. He had felt one reach that was different from all the others. Not a hand that wanted to be near him, but a hand that had learned to take what it needed from the edge of things and ask for nothing more. And of all the hundreds of touches in that crowd, that was the one he refused to let pass. The crowd shifted, uneasy now. People glanced at one another. Someone close by insisted they had touched nothing. He did not argue, and he did not explain himself. He simply kept turning, slowly, his eyes moving from face to face, the way you look for someone you have lost in a crowded market, patient, certain, unwilling to move on without them. He would not let her have it in the dark. He stood there, in front of everyone, and searched the crowd for the one person in it who had spent 12 years making sure she could never be found. She felt the whole thing turning toward her. She could have stayed silent. She could have let the crowd churn, and the question fade and slipped out the back of it. The way she had slipped out of 100 rooms before, for a few long seconds she stood perfectly still, the old instinct screaming at her to vanish while she still could. And then somehow her feet carried her the other way. Every face in the crowd was turning now, looking for whoever he meant, and she knew with absolute certainty that those faces were about to find her. There was nowhere to hide. The one skill she had spent 12 years building was useless now. She came forward trembling and fell down in front of him. Everything in her had trained for 12 years to do the opposite of this, to stay low, stay quiet, give no one a reason to look twice. And now she was on the ground before the largest crowd she had stood, inside in over a decade, about to say out loud the truth she had spent her life hiding. She told him everything, the years, the doctors, the rules she had broken to reach him, the touch, all of it spoken out loud in front of strangers, by a woman who had not said her own story out loud in longer than she could remember. And she braced for what always came next, the stepping back, the disgust, the reminder that she did not belong here. It did not come. He looked at her, not past her, not around her, at her, and he said one word that no one had said to her in 12 years. Daughter, not woman, not you, not the unclean one. Daughter, the word you keep for family. She had walked into that crowd, braced to be named the unclean one. The problem, the woman everyone steps away from. Instead, in front of the whole town, he called her family. For the first time in 12 years, the thing said about her out loud was not a warning. For a moment, she stayed where she was, down on the ground, unable to make her body move. For 12 years, she had rehearsed being sent. Away the words, the faces, the slow step backward. She had never once rehearsed this. She did not know what a person was supposed to do when, instead of being told to leave, she was told she belonged. Daughter, he said, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. The crowd she had spent her whole life hiding from heard her name. The woman who came to steal a healing in secret and disappear left. In the open, healed and seen and named. In front of the very town that had taught her she was no one. So here is the question the whole story turns on. She already had what she came for. The bleeding had stopped the instant her fingers touched the hem. He could have let her slip back into the crowd with her healing and never known her face. So why stop everything? Why turn around? Why hold up a whole town to find the one person in it who wanted only to stay invisible? He could have let her keep the healing and the secret both. Instead, he turned around. That is the strange, stubborn thing he did. He refused to let her disappear. She had spent 12 years making sure no one would ever find her. He stopped everything and found her anyway.